Violent protests continue to escalate in the Middle East after an anti-Islamic video goes viral.
And we're finding out more about 2 ex-Navy SEALs killed in the Middle East and how they're connected to San Diego.
And it looks like hundreds of thousands of students will be back in school on Monday. We have the latest on the teachers' strike in Chicago.
And you ready to feel the heat? I'll have your weekend weather forecast. Newscene starts right now.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Newscene. I'm Jennifer Hua.
And I'm Jai Nguyen. Thank you for joining us.
2 universities in Texas and North Dakota have evacuated their campuses due to several bomb threats. The threats first came from a phone call to the Texas campus at 8:35 this morning. The second threat came 90 minutes later at the university in North Dakota. Police say the calls came from a man with a Middle Eastern accent claiming to be from Al-Qaeda. Classes were canceled for the day, but buildings were able to be re-entered by noon. No bombs were found in any of the buildings.
And switching gears to international news, in the Middle East, protests continue. We already know the U.S. embassies and consulates were breached this week in Egypt. An update on Egypt, speaking of Egypt, another protester was killed today. This puts the latest death adds to the 4 people have been killed while during the demonstrastrations. And also switching gears to Tunis, Tunisia officials say that 2 are now dead and another 29 injured.
All right, and speaking of the Middle East, anti-American rallies are escalating. Demonstrators are storming the U.S. Embassy in Tunisia, but American personnel had already been evacuated. In Sudan, rioters are also targeting the British and German embassies. Helen Haas has the story.
Thanks, Jennifer. On the anniversary of September 11th, the American embassies in both Egypt and Libya were attacked. These countries are U.S. allies. Initially, the attacks seemed like random strikes, but officials now believe they are acts of terrorism. 4 Americans were killed in Libya, including the American ambassador to that country, Christopher Stevens. At first, officials believed the attacks were spawned in retaliation to a video ridiculing the Islamic prophet Muhammad. The video ran repeatedly on an extremist Egyptian television show. U.S. intelligence now thinks the video was used as a smokescreen to help orchestrate the attacks.
This appears to be a very coordinated military-style attack. This was not a demonstration gone bad. This was a clear, targeted, planned event that had both direct fire and indirect fire. It had military-style movements.
President Obama responded to the crisis quickly.
Today we mourn for more Americans who represent the very best of the United States of America. We will not waver in our commitment to see that justice is done for this terrible act, and make no mistake, justice will be done.
Leaders in both Libya and Egypt have denounced the violence, but it continues to spread. Rioters are attacking the American embassy in Yemen. The embassy in Egypt is still not secure, and students are now protesting at the Swiss embassy in Tehran. President Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton stand united in their mission.
We are working closely with the Libyan authorities to move swiftly and surely. We are also working with partners around the world to safeguard other American embassies, consulates, and citizens.
President Obama has deployed warships and drones to ferret out and capture the killers, but he is intent on keeping relations with the new leaders of Libya and Egypt open to strengthen their fledgling democracies. So as you can see, Jennifer and Johnny, there's a lot of tension in the Middle East right now.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks for that update.
Thank you, Helen.
And President Obama has joined his Secretary Hillary Clinton at Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland today to receive the remains of the 4 Americans slain in Benghazi this week. Dallas Richter has the story.
To honor the 4 Americans killed in the attacks against the U.S. Embassy in Libya. The violent protests broke out Tuesday, reportedly over a video produced by a Southern California filmmaker insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Ambassador Chris Stevens, Air Force vet Sean Smith, and San Diego residents, former Navy SEALs Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods, were killed by grenade fire during the riots. while the U.S. government promises retaliation.
Justice will be done.
Friends and family members remember the men who served our country as diplomats in Libya.
I think he really cared about the people there and was definitely there to try to help.
Chris Stevens worked in the Middle East most of his career and had been an integral part in the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi and the liberation of Libya.
It's especially tragic that Chris Stevens died in Benghazi because it is a city that he helped to save.
He is remembered fondly by friends, family, and colleagues alike.
Chris, his personal friend, he's a hero. He's a Libyan hero.
Glenn Doherty was a former Navy SEAL who worked as a fitness trainer in Encinitas.
Glenn was an amazing human being, and we're devastated. And it's a huge loss for everyone, and he's a hero to all of us.
Tyrone Woods once owned the Salty Dog, a bar in Imperial Beach, and is described by his family as a man who loved adrenaline and loved life. Dallas Richter, Newscene.
And 4 men are in custody today as suspects in the killing of American diplomats in the U.S. Embassy in Libya. 2 of those murdered were San Diego residents.
And tension continues to rise in Somalia. After just 2 days in office, Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed was the target of Al-Qaeda suicide bombing. 1 guard was killed and 3 soldiers were wounded in the explosion. All 3 bombers of the attack were also killed.
A textile factory in Pakistan catches fire and causes hundreds of deaths. Workers were trapped inside a garment factory on Wednesday after flames spread throughout the structure. Every exit but one had been locked and windows were mostly barred. Few were able to escape, but at least 264 people died of smoke inhalation. Officials are looking for the owners to press charges and are investigating government officials for failing to enforce safety regulations.
And the state of Alabama is trying to pass one of the nation's strictest anti-illegal immigration law, HB 56. Under the new law, school would be able to collect immigration information on new students. It would also make it illegal to harbor undocumented immigrants. An appeals court ruled on August that the law wrongly singled out children who are in the country illegally. The state of Alabama is asking the 11th Circuit to reconsider 2 parts of the law. Educators have said countless numbers of students are withdrawing from schools as a result of the law.
They called him El Cos, the boss of drug organization known as the Gulf Cartel. Jose Eduardo Castillo Sanchez is now a prisoner and faces extradition to the U.S. after his capture in Tampico, Tamaulipas, Mexico. This marks the 2nd high-profile bust in the past 2 weeks. Last week, police captured Mario Cardenas Guillen, another leader in the cartel. Officials recognize this as a significant blow in their war on drugs, with the impact yet to be determined.
And a new home in Temecula for an ex-Marine veteran is taking the iPad to a new level.
And the Raiders punt team was a no-show against the Chargers. Extra long snapper, anyone? We'll be right back.